and welcome to our LinkedIn Live today, our NCN Fall Update. We have a lot of great content in store over the next half hour. We'll be providing a market update, an amazing success story, as well as a preview of our upcoming NCN events. I'm Jessica Rubino. I'm the Vice President of Content and Summits at New Hope Network. I'm joined today by Mike Dovbish, who is the Executive Director of NCN, and Ritu Shah, Chief Executive Officer of ClostraBio Inc. Welcome, Ritu and Mike.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you all so much for being here. And we want to remind you, please put questions in the chat. We'll be checking that as we go through our conversations today, and would love to hear from you and what's top of mind for you right now. So let's jump in. Mike, I want to start with you. For anyone who's on today's LinkedIn Live who does not know what NCN Nutrition Capital Network is, can you give us like the 30-second overview?
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. And we refer to it often as NCN, but we always need to remind ourselves that not everyone knows what NCN is. So it's Nutrition Capital Network, and we hold events throughout the year. These are investor and partnering meetings for health and nutrition companies. Companies apply to present. If they are accepted, they present in front of an audience of a range of investors, anything from early stage investors who could be individuals or funds, all the way to corporates. So we hold 4 events a year. 2 of them are standalone events. One of them is coming up in San Francisco next month, and the other one is in New York. Those are primarily B2C companies that are presenting. And then we have 2 B2B ingredient technology focused events. And one of those is at Supply Side Global, which is happening in less than 2 weeks. And the other one is at Vita Foods in Barcelona. And along with that, we have a community of investor members, sponsors, and selection committee members.
Thanks, Mike. And it's such an amazing network that I always love hearing the success stories, case studies. Again, we'll hear one later today. But also, Mike, if someone wants more information specifically about either of the upcoming events, we'll talk about that today. But how can they get in touch with you or learn more about NCN and what we have coming up?
Yeah, feel free. You can obviously email me. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn too, so you could always send me a message there. And one thing I didn't mention, there's a lot that we do, but I also hold office hours for companies that are maybe starting to think about wanting to pitch to investors, and they want some feedback, or they just want to go through a practice run. So I'm available for that as well. You can email me and we can schedule time to do that. We hold those on Thursday mornings.
I love that you're doing this, Mike. They're great and such a benefit to the community. Okay, let's jump in and start talking about what's going on in the market right now. NCN does a mid-year report and a year-end report. The mid-year report came out a couple of months ago, and it definitely shows some really fascinating contradictions about what's happening in the capital environment. Now, total transactions dropped, I believe the report says, by about 15% to 358 deals. So that puts us on track for a 3rd straight year of being down around transactions. Yet the report also talks about some potential bright spots and calls this a really unusual time because there is so much attention around health and wellness. Of course, at a national level, there are a lot of big conversations happening. And so I'm curious, what do you think, what kind of dynamic does this create in the marketplace that we are down, yet there is some optimism and opportunity on the horizon?
Yeah, so we publish a mid-year report and a year-end
year-end wrap-up kickoff to the year investment outlook report as well. So that comes out in January. And we track these. We have databases that go back 20 years. So we're constantly tracking it, keeping an eye on what's happening. And yeah, it's been down the last few years. And we started to see that as soon as interest rates started rising. We saw that there was a direct impact to our audience and companies that were trying to raise money. And so it has been a bit of a rough couple years, particularly for companies out there that have had to uh, manage through all this, including tariffs and many other things. But going into this year, I think there was a lot of optimism, and there still is, but there was a lot of optimism about the industry. Um, there's a new energy around natural foods, natural colors. You had things like GLP-1, which is affecting um, categories now, particularly protein. So there's a big demand for all that. So I think so. There's many things that have been happening. So first off, there's been a huge drop off, and we cover a lot of different categories. One of which is ag tech and food tech, and that bubble really popped. So that really was down like 40-50%, whereas branded food and beverage was off, but not off as much. And supplements, actually, we saw that rise a bit. So we've never seen as many investors come to Expo West that we saw in 2025, which is very exciting. But I think there's a lot of questions and learnings from these new investors. They want to understand what's happening in the market. They know it's been a tough time, and we're starting to see investors that were traditionally interested in food and beverage really start taking a look at nutraceutical ingredients, B2B ingredients. And part of that also was a shift over from like the food tech, alt meat category where there was a big drop off. So there's a lot happening. There is growing interest and momentum. And I think there's going to be more movement happening with transactions happening. It's just taking a little bit more time. I think I think things just keep getting pushed out for different reasons. And the last one I think recently was tariffs. So, so that's a little bit of where we're at.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, lots of dynamics going on there. I do want to talk a little bit more about dietary supplements, which you called out as a bright spot. But before I do that, you mentioned this kind of wait and see mentality. How much longer do you think investors will be waiting to see? And what are we waiting for? What are we trying to figure out before we start to see that uptick in investments again?
Oh, that's a really good question.
The question, right? The question.
This is the most important question out there. I'm thinking maybe beginning of next year. I feel like tariffs really caused a wrinkle going into this year. There was been a very pro business MAHA movement going into this year, and some of that is still very positive. But there's still a lot of work that earlier stage companies have to do they have to readjust their supply chains. They have to get a bit more profitable. And so I think investors
are wanting to see what that looks like. I think they just need a little bit more time. And I feel like things are stabilizing with how things are shaking out. And I think the thinking is okay, interest rates a little bit longer, tariffs, the impact's been had. We are adjusting, or we have adjusted, and I think conversations now are starting to pick up.
Yeah, definitely, Mike. And I know we are looking at, and you mentioned this, but how are companies, whether they be branded products or ingredients, how are they really proving that they have a strong foundation to weather any storm? So I think this is an exciting time actually for companies to talk to investors about what they're doing to make sure they have that foundation in place and build investor confidence. And we're seeing a lot of that in terms of building resilient business models. On the supplement side of things, of course, there's so much supplement innovation at Supply Side Global coming up in just a couple of weeks. But what are some of the things that you're seeing there that are capturing the interest of investors?
So there's a lot. There's a renewed interest in algae. Companies that are working with algae, natural food colors. That's a big thing. Anything more interest now on proteins again. So that's pretty exciting. things that'll complement GLP-1. So there's actually quite a bit of different areas of interest, which is really exciting. And then I think I just read somewhere that now fiber is coming back too. There's a big interest in fiber. So a lot of different things, and it's really exciting. We have our event coming up. We have 16 presenting companies. We had to turn away a couple, which hopefully they'll come back to one of our other meetings, but that's a great sign. And we're very excited. The attendee, we have a very strong attendance list of investors too. So, and quite a few new ones. And there's not as many, I would say, earlier, or traditionally, there hasn't been as many earlier stage investors looking at B2B ingredient companies, and we're seeing more and more of that. So that's really exciting. It's also great for the industry.
Can't wait to see all of that activity there, Mike. Thank you. And I would think that's a perfect opportunity to turn it over to you, Ritu, because you presented at NCN at Supply Side Global a couple years ago. Before we jump into some of the details around what happened following that presentation, would love for you to share a little bit about what you do and who your company is in the market.
Yep. Thank you, Jessica. Thanks for having me here today. Hi, Ritu Shah, CEO of ClostraBio. We are an organization really focused on gut health and looking at that intestinal barrier integrity. We have a probiotic. It's a butyrate-producing strain that was recently introduced into the market, to be specific, on September 24th. So very exciting for us. Based and founded at the University of Chicago, really looking forward to looking at ways to continuing to think about conditions that are impacted by the intestinal barrier.
Well, such an important category right now. So much research coming out. People are paying attention more than ever. It's just been really fun to see everything that's happening in that space. And I know science is such an important part of what you do. Now, you presented at NCN. It was in 2023. You said you just launched. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And a lot happened in that time. One of the things that's really interesting about your experience is from presenting at NCN, you actually made some pretty significant pivots to your business model. Can you share a little bit about that? What happened after you were out there sharing your story with the world?
Yeah, thank you. It is a really exciting time right now. I cannot emphasize how much focus is on gut health and the microbiome and what we're doing today. So I feel like this is the opportune time for us. But when we pitched in October 2023 at this exact event 2 years ago, we were really thinking about, okay, we have this strain, we are looking for investors, we want to just be maybe direct to consumers. We're really not sure exactly how we're going to do this. And when we pitched, a couple of things happened. One, we learned about a channel called the practitioner channel. And it was so exciting to be educated on something like that. I had no idea that there was a channel that really focused on selling probiotics, nutraceuticals to healthcare professionals. And they have direct access, and they focus on targeting, they focus on looking at the education, right? I think there's a big importance on educating healthcare professionals and individuals who want to take probiotics. And this group has a large group of Salesforce representatives that go out, talk to the healthcare professionals, and they recommend purchasing our probiotic and introducing it to their patients. And I realized that this is a model for us that could be important, because that is our whole premise, is how do we educate the general consumer on what is important with gut health, why you should take something like this. And I learned about it at this event. And the second thing that happened was it gave me exposure to investors that I was not aware of. I had been traditionally more on the drug development side, and I had not interacted with as many brands and investors in the nutraceutical side. And so it allowed me to have that opportunity to see and meet a lot of new folks.
I love all of that, Ritu. I love your approach and how you really came at it with a sense of curiosity. I think some founders would think of a channel strategy shift as a distraction, but you really used it as an opportunity, and so spot on. We're seeing that channel just become more and more significant around dietary supplements. We actually have NBJ Nutrition Business Journal has a practitioner report that we recently came out with, so you can find more information on that on NBJ's website as well as on newhope.com. But we're constantly looking at that and its evolution. So really smart, especially for a company like yours that's so focused on science. And in that channel, you can really see that type of consumer education. So I love that. Can you elaborate a little bit more on your approach to raising capital, which seems really relationship driven?
Yeah, it is. And I'm glad you brought up, Jessica, the backed by science, because that's something really important to ClostraBio, that we want to make sure we do it right. All of our data is backed by science. Everything we say is backed by science. And that is why it was so important for us to go to this practitioner channel and move that forward. From an investor perspective, I look at it in two ways. I 100% believe that this is a relationship building opportunity. And I think that sometimes individuals go in and feel that you can raise funds or you can start selling to brands very quickly. It takes 1 or 2 meetings. And I fundamentally believe that this is a multi-year process. I look at opportunities that NCN provided where you can do a pitch. You're not only pitching to investors, you're pitching to brands, you're pitching to a lot of different folks. And that's the first time you get to meet some of these individuals face to face. And that allows this creation of trust. It creates a relationship. And it's just the beginning, though. It takes months and even years to continue to grow those relationships. And it takes energy and time, right? I think that is something that I've really had to focus on, is every time, every month, we're thinking about how am I going to reach out to these brands? How am I going to reach out to these investors? So I stay top of mind and I can continue to show progress. And every time I would meet with some of these folks, they would just continuously say, you have such a small team. How did you get so much done in such a quick period of time? And it was just really fun to come back and be like, we told you we would get it done. We did it. We're doing all the right things. And one of our investors came through watching us pitch at NCN. And it wasn't until almost a full year later that they actually did invest, because they wanted to create that relationship and think about the due diligence and see to make sure that we really were doing what we said we're going to do.
That's such a refreshing and important perspective on just the patience that it requires. I think we're all looking for the quick win. And, sometimes that happens great, but especially now, and Mike, with everything you were talking about, applying that patience and that type of mentality of fostering a relationship over months and years is so important. And on the efficiency topic, asking for a friend, how do you get it all done? Because it sounds like you're running a very efficient company over there.
Yeah, no, I think that, I sometimes laugh at myself and I think I'm being a nag, but I know that folks are busy. And so for me personally, I just have to remember and remind myself that it takes multiple reach outs and to be patient. Um, I think that in order to get it done, especially when you have a very small team, is you find individuals that are driven and that are as eager as you are to get something out in the market done well. So our team is made up of scientists and individuals that have come from academia, that have been in the market and the industry before, and they know that it has to be done well and right. And if they do it that way, then things eventually move quicker, maybe later. So it's better to be steady, but it'll go quick. So I think that finding folks who are driven and are willing to be patient and are interested in doing it the right way is what allowed us to do it the way we did and be in the market now 2 years later.
Yeah, the power of building a really strong team of both internal people, but also those external partners that we're talking about. So let's shift gears a little bit to look ahead at Supply Side Global and NCN's fall meeting. Ritu, if there's some piece of advice you could give companies that are attending our NCN event at Supply Side Global, what would that be in terms of their presentation and what they want to get out of it?
Yeah, I would say go in open-minded. I think sometimes a lot of us as CEOs will have this one goal in mind, and that's to raise money, right? I think all of us are raising money every single day, and it's exhausting. And I think that if you go in with an open mind that perhaps you're not only pitching to investors, but to brands or to people who know people, it allows you to be more open-minded to the questions and to the pace that it'll take. And so I encourage people to do that. I also encourage folks to keep it simple. You'll have time if you are able to create some of those connections to go into more detail. And so, what are the most important things you want to try to get out? As Mike said, they're listening to 16 pitches in one day. That's a lot. And so, how do you say something that makes it memorable for the folks that are listening to you? And then put yourself out there. There are networking opportunities during that day. There's lunches, there's receptions afterwards, there's breaks. Like go out and seek and do your homework, know who's going to be there, and make sure you go introduce yourself and get information, contact information, and make sure you follow up right away. Just stay in front of it and make sure that's the way they're going to remember you.
Great advice, Ritu. Thank you. Mike, what about you? Anything you would add for Supply Side Global? But then I do want to talk about our fall meeting that's coming up just a couple weeks after Supply Side.
Yeah, and I think this will go to both actually, and I'm just going to build off what Ritu said, is that go into it with an open mind. We had an alumni come who pitched at San Francisco a couple years ago and was successful out of it, and said, and was in town for our New York event and said, I'd like to come on stage and talk about my success with NCN. And I said, oh, great, terrific. So he's an amazing speaker, gets on stage and immediately says, I pitched at NCN a year and a half ago and no one invested in my company. And I thought, I just stood in the back of the room and I thought, he's doing this to sabotage us. But he went on to say he didn't raise money, but he met someone that introduced him to a contract manufacturer who he had never heard of. And it was pivotal in some of the issues he was having. And then that enabled him to scale and get to where he was at that time, which was somewhere between 50 and 70 million in revenue. And he was at 7 million probably 2 years prior. So those types of connections, was it an investment? It wasn't. But it was, and we know that companies are coming, their objective is to raise money, but there are a lot of other ways to achieve your objectives, some of them just as important as raising capital. So it's going in there, understanding that probably everybody in the room can be helpful to you. A sponsor can be helpful to you, a selection committee member. Some of our selection committee members who choose who's going to be presenting and ultimately mentors them. Some of them were co-founders of, well, one of them in particular was co-founder of Celsius Beverage, which is, I think, now a market cap of $12 billion. So there's just so much to gain from these events, and not just meeting investors, although we know that's the most important part. And we try our best to help facilitate as many connections as possible. But also know if you're pitching, we help afterwards. So we help reach out to a few investors that might not have attended, that might not be directly involved in NCN, but we might have a relationship to them. So we know how important it is, and we'll work overtime to help you get to what you're trying to achieve. So just know that it's a very supportive, we're very supportive, and it's a very supportive industry, unlike some other industries out there. So, so anyway, yeah, I think going in with an open mind and knowing that everybody in the room could probably help your business is a great tip.
Yeah, and the collaborations that have emerged from this NCN community are really impressive. Mike, specifically talking about the fall event, which is the meeting is on November 12th. What is kind of some of the highlights, the most exciting thing that you're thinking about for that event that you want to let people know about, particularly as it relates to what's happening in the market and some of the content and data and insights that we'll be sharing there?
Yeah, so we are just about to invite our first batch of companies today, and it's a really interesting. We haven't invited them yet, but the application pool is really interesting and diverse. So of course there'll be brands, there are some medical foods, but I think what I'm really seeing is there's a lot of entrepreneurs there. The companies that are coming forward now, there's a lot more nuance, more so than I've seen previously than when we first started. So there's a lot of needs for these products in different areas. It could be for post surgery. We've had a company pitch that was you take this product that's for, after you have a surgery, then you go on these products that doctors can recommend. And company like that presented in Canada or Canadian event a couple of years ago, and they raised money. So there's just a lot of different types of companies all within health and nutrition. So I think if you're an investor, you're going to see a wide range of opportunities and not just a traditional CPG brand, although there's some really interesting ones of those too. So it's looking like a diverse set of companies, and then some really great content. We're going to have a market update from Lipstitch, an investor market update, and then a trends and innovation update from our very own Adrian. And Adrian has been Adrian Smith, who is a content director, and she oversees Nexties. And I don't want to butcher the Nexties. So Jessica, can you just briefly say what the Nexties are? Because she's been running it for years and how important it is, because not everybody knows the Nexties.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and as you were talking, Mike, I was thinking like the companies that you're seeing, it sounds like they're really differentiating themselves in the market, which is so important because we're seeing so many companies enter into the space. Health and wellness is just, it's, exploding. And so to have these elements of differentiation, and that's really what the Nexty Awards are all about. It's looking at companies that stand out. We call it the 3 I's: innovation, inspiration, and integrity. And that's how we judge that awards program, really focused on emerging brands and some of the most exciting things that are happening in the CPG industry. So yes, Adrian absolutely has a front row seat to all of that. And so I'm excited for Adrian to present at the fall meeting, because we take all of that data from our Nexty Awards, from Expo West, from supply side, and say, okay, what is next for the industry? And so to be able to share that trends content at NCN, we're really excited about. But yes, and if you have questions about the Nexty Awards, feel free to reach out to me and I can connect you with the right people. So Mike, we'll have trends content, we'll have the capital market update, and then sounds like some really, really great companies. Anything else happening at fall that you'd like our attendees here today to know?
Well, we do have, we understood for several years we weren't providing a venue for the investors to network amongst themselves. So we started those a year or so ago. So we have an investor cocktail reception the night before, and then a full day of pitches, networking. We have a dinner that night as well, and we are introducing a social media lounge too. So this is an opportunity for companies to use our top-notch, I would say, state-of-the-art video team, who can then help companies create little snippets that they can use in their social media outreach, whether it's like TikTok or Instagram. And so, yes, a lot of really interesting things happening. One session I didn't mention is Edacious, which is a nutrition technology company. They're going to be speaking. They're going to be doing a case study with Alexander Farms. I didn't realize this. It was the nation's first organic regenerative dairy farm. So I just think that's really interesting. I think it really showcases, and we try to do for our events, it really showcases the region where you have a high-tech solution, Edacious, with a very low-tech company, a dairy farm, that a family farm. So the merging of those, I think that's really interesting, and I think it really highlights the San Francisco Bay Area. So very excited about that, and new investors coming too as well.
I get excited about that too, Mike, as you know, because we talk about this a lot, but the merging of the low tech and high tech solutions to develop solutions that are focused on making the world a healthier place, which is really what it's all about at NCN and through all that we do at Informa Health and Nutrition. So I've been keeping an eye on the chat, and it looks like we had a lot of people join over the course of the last half hour. So if you joined and you have any questions, please do throw them in the chat. If you don't have any questions right now, you can reach out to Ritu and Mike after this on LinkedIn. I know they'd both love to hear from you, as would I. And that puts us at the top of the hour. So Ritu and Mike, any final words before we hop off for the day? Unfortunately, I wish we could go all day.
Jessica, thank you for having me. Mike, I look forward to the event in a couple of weeks at Supply Side Global and speaking with you at our fireside chat. And I just encourage everyone to continue to think about staying healthy and maintaining that gut.
Thank you, Ritu.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing everybody at our upcoming events. And please reach out. And again, I want to reiterate, I have office hours Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, and happy to have a conversation with any founder out there.
Amazing. Fastest half hour of the day. I am sure of it. Well, for me at least. So thank you both so much. Thanks everyone for attending today. Keep an eye out for upcoming events. Check out NCN's website for more information on Supply Side Global, as well as our fall event. And really appreciate you both being here. And thanks everyone for joining. Have a great rest of the day.